This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Have you ever had a thought, determined that you were going to go ahead and pull the trigger and immediately had regrets? Yeah. This is Wretched Radio. Before I get to my regret, because I've had a few, just saw a short film somebody prepared about the Golden Gate Bridge, the number of people who have jumped off of it. Hundreds have done it. Very few survived. This was the story of one man, and he says it himself, that he struggled with mental illness. Very cogent. I mean, we have a tendency, I think, to sometimes think mental illness means perhaps low IQ. That's not the case at all. That can be a part of it, but that certainly is not always the way that it is. And this young man was sharp, a very articulate fellow. And he talked about how blue he felt, that it was just surrounded by a cloud. He didn't know what else to do. He decides to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he said, and I get to tell you something that everybody who has jumped off and survived also said. The nanosecond their hand left the railing, they regretted it. I want to live. Isn't that fascinating? That people who want to take their life by jumping off of a bridge, they regret it immediately. And he said, most don't live to tell. So I'm here to tell you, don't do it. Don't do it. Because when you're falling for 7-8 seconds at 75 miles an hour, that's all you're going to be thinking about. I want to live. I want to live. I think God instills that in us. And even when people are that blue, that sad, that hurting, they still have something inside of them that says, I want to live. And they would take it back in a heartbeat. My regret, asking Tony, I know I shouldn't do this. Tony, you said that the best quote from the Reformer was the one that I didn't use. All right, I'm going to take the bait. What is the quote?
I don't actually know.
So let me get this straight.
Basically giving you a hard time.
I'm up against the clock. I've got about 20 seconds to pick a winner, and you start playing shenanigans. So just basically to bust my chops.
Par for the course.
And you know what? Joey, thank you for the perspective. You know what? Speaking of perspective, I read a story. Crowd. Hey, look, if you can't follow this synapse, I'm sorry. This is just the chemical reactions in my brain. I read a story about a person. Oh, where did it go here? It was I know. Hold on a second. I got it here. Somewhere I got this story. It's the story of a woman, and I was reading it, and wait a second. It's right here in front of me. Hold on. Remember, you're listening to the most organized radio program on this station at this time. Here's the headline. You'd think a Puritan wrote this. It was from the Daily Mail. This is one sentence. Woman who survived being aborted at 8 months after a nurse heard her cries from the medical trash can spent 17 years tracing her birth mother and reveals how she learned to forgive. Oxygen, please. That's a long sentence. Now, you would think that this is going to be the story about what happened. Heard her cries from a medical trash can. She's on a quest to find her birth mother, does, and learns how to forgive. This story is 1. Goes through the saline abortions. Page 3. Page 4 talks about her grandmother. Page 5, nothing about how she learned to forgive. Page 6, oh, wait a second. There it is. The last page, the last sentence. Here's what it says. Through my Catholic faith, I have learnt to forgive. It doesn't make what happened okay, but it releases you from the pain. We're all humans and we all make mistakes. Talk about burying a lead. Talk about not even getting to the subject matter that you promised to get to. That's why I was interested. It's like, okay, what's the mechanism? What was it that allowed her to forgive? Now, leaving the Catholic faith thing aside, which we probably shouldn't, but nevertheless, it doesn't make what happened okay, but it releases you from the pain. Is that the mechanism that you need when something bad has happened to you? It makes me feel better to forgive. Is that always the case? Is that a guarantee? Does that just put an end to it? I don't think it does. Why? It releases just by saying I forgive. If somebody tried to kill you, That's what happened to this young woman. Somebody tried to kill her. And just saying, I forgive. What were we talking about? I've released the pain. What does that even mean, to release the pain? Such cliched language. And then she says, we're all human and we all make mistakes. Okay. Let's use the extreme, which I know these days is verboten, but nevertheless, let's use the extreme. You are a Holocaust survivor. Are you going to release the pain and say you forgive Adolf Hitler? Perhaps the torturers that were responsible for making your life beyond miserable. Did you read, by the way, there's a story. They haven't released the letter yet. They simply were kind of a tease. They have 80 to 85% of a letter that was buried at a work camp. I don't know if I think it was Auschwitz, and one of the labor camps. There were hundreds of them, of a Jewish person who did survive, died in 1980 something, but had written a letter and buried it at the camp. They found it, and although the ink was all schmooged and awful, but because of computer stuff and whatever it is that they do in laboratories, they were able to. They've got like 85% of it. What makes it incredible is he was one of the Jews who was assigned the job of removing the bodies of his fellow Jews who were killed. Because he said there was the changing room. You stripped naked. Then you were ushered. 3,000 people at a time could fit into this room. The doors were locked. You did not receive a shower. As if that just didn't strip you of not only your clothes but your dignity. You didn't receive a shower. You were gassed to death. But then the bodies had to be taken to the cremation plant. It was this fellow's job to do that. Oh, wow. Can you imagine? No. Can you imagine the profound scarring from that? No, I don't think so. So now this woman who said that the secret to forgiving is to simply release yourself from the pain. After all, people make mistakes. That going to work for that Jewish fellow whose assignment was to drag dead bodies of his fellow Jews to be turned into ashes? I don't think so. We need something else. We need something bigger. This is what biblical counseling is about. Furthermore, we need an authority. It's throwing out these cliches. These are Oprah-isms. We hear this type of thing all the time. They sound good. I know. I was watching Shark Tank, just a few moments of it. And absolutely nothing on. We wanted to watch a few moments of television. Shark Tank won. And some guy had developed, he was a soldier who had an invention of sandals or something that he invented. And Mark Stein? Not Mark Spence. No, that's not the billionaire guy who owns the basketball team and the football, the rich guy. Whatever his name.
What's his doc?
Well, no, it's not what's its doc.
No, but he started with Real Audio, Mark.
Whatever. Okay, he's the bazillionaire.
Yeah.
And he said something like, it was about music. He said, I'll take ballots over bullets anytime. Okay, what? You mean there's no place for bullets? You didn't want these wicked people who killed Jewish people by putting them into a shower with gas and then into an oven to incinerate their bodies? You don't want bullets. You want to sing them a song? We throw out these little, I prefer ballots over bullets anytime. Mark Cuban. Okay. What does that mean? What does this stuff mean? It's dreck. It isn't helpful at all. What do we need? We need to have a source. We need to have the ability to forgive people for the things that they do for us. By the way, this is a shout out. This isn't ready yet, but it's going to be. We've got a new product, a resource coming out for Thanksgiving. It's called Conflict. And it's all about biblical reconciliation. We had Dr. John Street of Masters University in the studio. It's almost it's like 2.5 hours long. It's magnificent. How do you forgive? Where do you go for this? You need something more than, well, it makes me feel better. Well, let's be honest. It doesn't just make you feel better. So how do you work through this? How's about this? Nobody's done anything to me that I haven't done to the Savior 1,000,000 times more. Nobody has hurt me more than I've hurt the Savior. Nobody's sinned against me more than I've sinned against the God who died for me. Now, suddenly I've got something to work with, don't I? I've got a place that I can go and say, this just makes sense. This is right. Because of this, then that. Without the because of Jesus dying for me while I was yet a sinner, I have no source. I don't have a then. All I've got are platitudes. I've got fortune cookie theology that doesn't help it out. Well, time heals all wounds, they say. And I should know, said Sheena Easton. Well, I'm sorry, Sheena. That's a nice platitude you're singing about. But I need more, and we've got it in the Bible, and we've got it as Christians. I can forgive because I have been forgiven far more than anything anybody has ever done for me. And when I hear the nails of Jesus rattling in my pockets, I can hardly hear the din of sins that have been committed against me, and I can forgive because I have been forgiven by an amazing Savior. That's what we need. Until tomorrow, go serve your King. Don't forget, if you would like to hear the entire daily broadcast, simply visit wretched.org, go to iTunes, figure out your favorite Android listening platform, and you can listen to the entire program every single day, downloaded to your listening device for free. Well, thanks to our monthly supporters called the Gospel Partners. If you'd like to partner with us, we'd be very, very grateful. Simply visit wretched.org.